In this issue, the simulation for you is the top Brazilian soccer team, Sabecoen IV team, the plane crash in Colombia. Let's rewind to the evening of November 28, 2016. A passenger plane is docked in Bolivia, Santa Cruz Airport, checking in for boarding. This is a business charter flight. There are 77 people on board. Almost all of the passengers are players from the Shapecoense team. Their destination for the trip was Medellin, Colombia, because they will face Colombia on November 30. They will face Colombia away. Atlético Nacional Medellin. This is also the first time that Shapecoense, first time to reach the Copa Sudamericana, soccer league final, and competed with Atlético Nacional for the first and second place. Due to some international civil aviation regulations, they could not fly directly from Brazil to Colombia, so they chose to make a stopover in Bolivia to Colombia. At this time the plane was loaded with 9,073 kilograms of fuel after deducting the 200 kilograms of fuel consumed during the taxi before takeoff. 873 kg of fuel left and 8,650 kilograms of fuel is needed to reach the destination. By calculation, it is barely possible to reach the destination of Medellin, but this way of refueling is not in accordance with international civil aviation rules because the plane must reserve some fuel in case of emergencies according to the international civil aviation rules. 12,052 kilograms of fuel should be added to this flight, but at this time the plane only had 9,073 kilograms of fuel. At approximately 6:18 p.m. the plane took off from Santa Cruz Airport without incident. The flight was expected to take 4 hours. The flight distance was approximately 2,575 kilometers. After a short flight at approximately 9:15 p.m., the low fuel warning on the plane came on. At this point, we were still 180 nautical miles from the destination airport. And not far below the airspace where the plane was cruising, there is an airport, Bogotá Airport. They could have landed at Bogotá first, filled up with fuel and then fly to the destination airport in Santa Cruz. But the captain didn't do that. They continued to fly 180 nautical miles to Santa Cruz Airport. The plane flew for some more time. By now the plane was approaching Santa Cruz Airport. Santa Cruz Airport has only one runway for landing and takeoff, and those heading here to watch the Copa Sudamericana. To watch the Copa Sudamericana final, the airport was full of people. The airport is lined with planes waiting to land. At this moment, the plane's fuel warning light is still flashing. But the crew did not mention this to the flight control. ATC had no idea that the plane was running out of fuel. The plane continued to fly forward for some distance. At this point, the flight crew was contacted by the MAID's proximity desk. The crew was informed that to hover at the James waypoint near the airport waiting to land. As we mentioned earlier, the airport was very busy at this time. The tower had to arrange the aircraft to land in an orderly manner. After receiving the instruction to hover and wait, still did not report to the tower staff the situation of fuel emergency. What's even more strange is that the crew of the aircraft even agreed to the hover and wait command. Then the crew flew the plane in the waypoint of the jump and kept circling. About 8 minutes of circling time, a total of 44 nautical miles of circling flight, and the plane circled at only 16 nautical miles from the airport. If the crew had informed the tower earlier the fuel shortage situation, they could have landed safely at the airport, but the crew did not do so. Instead, after circling for 44 nautical miles, finally told ATC about the fuel emergency, requesting a priority landing. After receiving the crew's request for help, the tower replied in the affirmative, awaiting descent instructions. Then the tower immediately rearranged the landing sequence. Engine 9:533 out. Engine 9:534 is out. The tower is now dispatching other aircraft to help Shapecoense plane to clear the way, but the Sabecoense aircraft never spoke to the tower, said their engines 3 and 4 were shut down. At 9:55. The plane's number 2 engine also stopped running because it ran out of fuel. 9:55 engine 1 also shut down completely. This time the co-pilot again asked ATC to let them land immediately. ATC replied, "How long can you hold on?" The crew replied, 30 seconds. After hearing the reply, The tower master was shocked, immediately told the crew to land from the left. The crew replied, "We have started landing from the right side." In a short time all electrical systems on the aircraft were disabled. The flight data recorder also stopped recording. The air traffic controllers repeatedly called the plane. There was no answer. The plane ran out of fuel and the engine died. It continued to fly for 5.4 nautical miles. Finally, when it was about 8.2 nautical miles from the runway, hit a hill. Engine 1 and Engine 4 were detached from the fuselage. The fuselage flipped 180 degrees and came to a stop. The entire cabin and cockpit were turned upside down, because of the exhaustion of fuel. The plane did not catch fire after the crash. Only 6 of the 77 people on board survived. Cause of the accident: the crew did not fill up with enough fuel before takeoff when fuel was running low. Did not land at the nearby Bogota airport. Did not run out of fuel. Instead, they chose to fly directly to the destination airport. When arriving near the destination airport, and did not inform the tower about the fuel shortage to the tower in time. Instead, he circled around the airport at a waypoint and circled for 44 nautical miles when the fuel was about to run out before informing the tower of the fuel emergency, but by then it was too late. 4 engines died one after another and eventually crashed into a hillside near the airport. The 71 people on board were killed. The Shapecoense were almost wiped out. In the end, it was discovered that the captain of the plane was actually a shareholder of the airline. We finally understood why the captain tried to save fuel by all means. This led to this painful disaster in the history of aviation.